Little Women might be the closest thing we have to a perfect classic book. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam and I read books. Today, I feel the need to make a separate video for Little Women because I think it is deserving of just this, if not more. I recently saw a theater adaptation, a theater production of Louisa May Alcott's Perfection just a couple of weeks ago, and we need to talk about it. Finished reading the book, watched the theater presentation, and I think it is the perfect classic. So let's just dive right into it. Got a couple of reasonings why, notes and whatnot. So let's get into it. But before we do, I wanted to shout out our latest channel member, Stan Brown. Appreciate you being here. That is a new feature on this channel. As always, not required per se, but just another way to show support. Consider subscribing if you're new, and let's get into it. So what do I mean by the perfect classic? I think I have a couple of reasons here. Just for starters, I think this book is perfect for starters. It's not intimidating language. I think it was written for children at the time back then, and it has this sort of cultural impact without it feeling dusty or old or intimidating. It also has this element of like moral teaching without feeling too preachy. And I think everyone will find something enjoyable, heartbreaking, useful. You fill in the blank. It is in this book for everyone. And that is why I think it is one of, if not the perfect classic. So a bit of context before we get too deep into the weeds. This book is semi-autobiographical. Louisa May Alcott went by Lou, is sort of the main character here in the form of Joe, or the author of Little Women. And yeah, it's just sort of about her life and the things that her and her sisters and her mother get up to during the Civil War period in the United States. It wasn't really originally written as just high literature, a classic book to be studied. It was written as just a sort of raw retelling of this young girl's life, and that is sort of, you'll see that as a constant theme throughout this video, that this book wasn't trying to be anything and ended up being everything. And I think that's part of its power. The humility of the book is sort of what makes it what it is. So obviously, Little Women, the first thing we have to talk about is the March sisters. We have Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, and each one at the start sort of represents this archetype of a human being. Meg being just sort of the down-to-earth, domestic, goody two-shoes. Jo, the rambunctious, sort of not so kin to following the rules, artist, writer, wants her to carve her own path. Beth, sort of this quiet goodness, fragility in a sense, just sort of always on her best behavior, and that sense of calm and heartbeat in the family. And then obviously young Amy, the most vain of them, but not to a fault, I would say. She has emotional maturity towards the end of it, and I think one of the most growing character arcs throughout the entire story. And I said these sisters feel like archetypes, like buckets of people when they first start, but they really grow into being their own characters as the book develops and matures. Obviously, the book starts off when the girls are quite young and you don't know anything about them, and so that is why it feels very segmented, sort of bucket-like, and that is when people initially latch on to one that they most resonate with in the book, because they sort of attach themselves to this. But as the characters grow, as they get older, as the story progresses, they turn into more real people, and that is just another one of the great things about the book. They're allowed to fail, they're allowed to make mistakes. Not something you see too often in books, if I can say that, is characters are allowed to make mistakes and be corrected and grow from them and show that they have grown, and that is what makes it just so real. Usually people identify with one sister and then they change as they get older, or they change as the characters get older. I think that adds to the charm of the book, the rereadability of it. You can read it in different stages of your life, get something new out of it because maybe you associate with a different character, or you pick up something new that you didn't first see, ultimately adding to its sort of perfection status in my eyes. Rereadability, sort of maybe in your teen years you have read this book and you identify most with Amy, who has these high aspirations of being rich and famous and marrying rich. Maybe early adulthood, you're in your sort of grinding years, you more resonate with Joe and just trying to carve your own path of destiny. Maybe in your later years, you more resonate with Miss March or maybe Meg as you're sort of settling down and getting more into the rhythm of life. I think that just is part of the book. I don't think it was necessarily intended to be that way, but like I said, the humility of this book is one of its strengths. Also has that cultural staying power. I mean, clearly, I just saw a theater production of it in 2026, so clearly there's still interest in this book, in this story. There are multiple film adaptations, endless theater productions across multitude of generations, and that I think is why the book is still remembered, not necessarily assigned to be read, but just remembered as a great story. I think it lasts because it connects with people, not because it's canonized or part of this literary canon per se, but because it is so real and approachable and everything like that. I have some statistics here from the playbill, the play I just saw. I thought these were interesting, a good place to share them here in terms of cultural staying power. So it says Little Women by the numbers. So obviously sources vary, but it took Louise May Alcott anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks to write the first volume. Obviously there are 2 parts to Little Women. It was published in 2 different parts, so anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks to publish that first part, and the first part sold out pretty much instantly. 2,000 copies in the first run, sold out within 2 weeks. The second printing sold 10,000 copies in that same timeline. And in the first year of these 2 publishings, they sold 87,000 copies, which earned Alcott and her family $6,078 back in the day, which is equivalent to $125,000. That was just from part 1 of the book. All in all, together in her life, she earned about $8 million in today's day and age from her publication of Little Women. And that was what I thought was interesting and very nice, was that was enough to support her family and all of their descendants for their entire lives. And that is what she decided to do with the money. There was a sort of interlude at the end of the play where they hashed out this information. As the sisters got older, fell on some hardship, they all found sanctuary in Lou's house with her husband, and she obviously formed this boys camp, and that was funded by her book money, and she was just able to do so much good for her and her community, which is really what this book is all about. So she was really living and breathing what is taught in this book, not in a preachy way, but just in the way the book was written. It has sold over 1,000 copies a month for over a century. I think that is insane. Like I said, that cultural staying power, because it connects, not because it's canonized. There's 22 film and TV adaptations, over 100 editions in 50 plus languages. It's probably sold over 10 million copies in its lifetime and has been in print for almost 160 years. So it sort of adds to the magnitude, the spectacle of it. Little Women by the numbers, I think, is important to relay such information, because it just goes to show how impactful this book has been for almost 2 centuries. Now the book, I think some common criticisms of the book, which are fair, but don't want to sort of bash these criticisms as things that were maybe trying to be something that they weren't. Some things include criticisms like it's too sentimental, there's dated gender roles, it's very slow pacing. I think those are all true and fair criticisms when held up to the spotlight of 21st century America. What I would say to this is that I don't think it reflects endorsements of the time. I don't think this book was written to endorse such behaviors. I think it would just sort of is, again, a magnifying glass, a lens into the past of what these cultural restraints were. They reflect constraints, not endorsements, in the sense that we sort of have the place to call it out, and it adds to its sentimentality. It was just real and raw and honest. It wasn't trying to be something it wasn't. And again, that's why it connects with so many people. People like it when you are just yourself, and this book is a perfect example of just being yourself. Sort of to wrap it up here, this book doesn't demand adoration. It doesn't really demand anything. Like I've said twice now, humility is its best attribute, and I think that's why it draws so many people in. It respects ordinary lives, which is something hard to come by in today's day and age, I find, especially with how fast things are moving and just the hustle culture that has sort of intoxicated the modern world. This is the complete opposite. Just respecting kindness, creativity, effort, real relationships, and it has endured for, like I said, almost 160 books. 160 years, this book. Maybe I need to read it once again, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading it. This was my first time reading it this year. Definitely looking forward to reading it in various stages of my life and seeing how I connect with it in different parts. But that will do it. Like I said, I think this book is, if not one of the most perfect classic books ever written. I think anyone can approach this book. It doesn't have this dry, dusty language that maybe some other books written in its time can seem to have. I think it's very approachable. Anyone can learn from it. You can learn from any of the characters. The characters feel real. It is honest. It is great. Just give this book a read if you have not already. And let me know down below, have you read Little Women? If so, how many times? I know this is quite a book that folks like to reread for good reason. So let me know your thoughts down below. But we will leave it at that. I appreciate you watching up until this point. As always, if you are new here, consider subscribing. The channel has been popping as of recently, so I'd appreciate it if you stick around for it. Again, shout out Stan, the latest channel member. And yeah, we will end it at that. Give it a like if you liked it. Leave a comment down below and all that YouTube stuff so other readers alike can stumble upon this video much like yourself. We will catch you in the next one. I hope you're reading a great book. Have a great rest of your day.